Hello and welcome to the Stars with Mary Edwards. I'm here with my special guest and dear friend, Dave Wallace, who's going to share with us some of his ideas about evolutionary processes and triggers and more. So great to have you back again, Dave. After a brief introduction, if you can give yourself, we're going to talk about some wild and wonderful otherworldly things and pertinent information for today that we all need to know. So love you. Welcome back. And always good to see your energy here.
Thank you very much. It's always lovely to see you, Mary. You know, I love our little catch ups, and I think it's unique that they're being recorded. I oftentimes wonder what civilization in the future will dig these up out of some electronic file and watch them and say, gosh, how come these guys weren't in charge of everything? So yeah, I think it's nice to talk a little bit about evolutionary process and evolutionary triggers and what makes those happen and how society moves forward. It was some time ago, I believe in the 60s, and I can't quote the university or the doctors that discovered this, but in Africa, there was a group of anthropologists studying a group of monkeys that were, I think, in West Africa and near the island of Lamu, which is just off the coast. And they were watching a specific type of monkey that was foraging for protein. And it would dig with its hands or pick cockles off of boulders there in the sea and eat the little snail out of the shell. And there was a group of 15 or so. Well, on the island at the exact same time, they were filming on both locations, but they were separated by about 100 miles. They found that on the beach of the mainland of North Africa, one of the monkeys picked up a stick and used it to dig for clams instead of his hands. And it was right then where we watched that evolutionary trigger where something happened in that animal's mind that convinced him picking up a stick would be better than sticking his arm down a hole. And at the exact same time, on the island, the anthropologists were also filming the same group of monkeys. They picked up a stick and started digging for clams. Completely non-correlated, no communication at all. So this proved empirically, scientifically, that there's an evolutionary trigger which manifests after a certain period of time where our brain makes a leap and goes forward. Now, there's been a lot of speculation about mankind as hunter-gatherer, that, you know, we used to be able to put lots of information into very few symbols, but these symbols are found all over the planet. The symbol of a hand or an asterisk or 4 lines or 3 wavy lines. But these symbols are found everywhere, from Portugal to Siberia, from Crete to Africa, and even North America and China and France and Ireland. So these prehistoric Neolithic symbols, which mainstream scientists don't really understand what they stood for, are actually a form of highly advanced communication that all peoples would use so that they could communicate beyond the diaspora of known languages at the time. So if you were
like crop circles and
right. So,
like
and I was going to touch on that. So
yes.
as ancient man was a hunter-gatherer, he may have a tribe, let's use Southern California as an example where I'm at. There could be a group of early Chumash Native peoples. And in the wintertime, they would go down to the beach. But in the summer, when the wildfires would hit, they'd go way up high in the San Gabriel Mountains and the San Bernardino Mountains to get the fresh air and live in the forest. Well, when things got difficult and they had to forage much more, there would be a group of perhaps 100 hunters and gatherers that would travel maybe 500 to 1,000 miles to a known area, say in Utah or in Nevada, where there were other tribal peoples. And what they would do is they would use these symbols on rocks. So every 50 miles or 100 miles, you would look for a sacred landscape, perhaps the ridge line of a mountain or a specific group of old trees or some boulders. And they would go and they would know to find that image of grandfather's hand. And that would lead them to more symbols and the place of safety to tell them where the basket of dried berries in the cave was, the river that forks, and the salmon that leap from it. So these little symbols were highly compressed, highly meaningful pieces of information that were all put into one little symbol. And these are known as pictographs, but they're also what we call corellograms or logograms. Now, in the use of this pre-language language, because this is before cuneiform and before Hieraic or any of these ancient written languages, which I think only made things more complicated for people. If we all spoke the same language, I bet we'd get along a lot better. But we would go through the tribal pathway, find these symbols, read them, and then we would know this is the sacred land where we can go and take care of ourselves for 10 days before continuing on our journey to go trade with the peoples 1,000 miles away. And then, of course, they would find the same ancestral route back to the tribe here in Southern California. Now, when we look at corellograms today, like if you looked at a coffee shop, let's pick like AM, PM, it's a steaming cup of coffee. And, we know that's a modern day corellogram because it tells us we can get something to eat, perhaps go to the potty, use the telephone and get some petrol. All of that information into one symbol. So we still have this place in our ancient brain that teaches us that one symbol can be emblematic of many different ideas and many different things. So these symbols and the symbology and the use of symbols is connected to higher cognitive abilities because we still use symbols just like our pre-ancestors. Now, if we take that and just set that aside for a moment, now you mentioned crop circles. Well, of course, crop circles are wonderful stuff. And the intricacy of the patterns and how everything is bent. Of course, they're not man-made with somebody with wood paddles on their feet. They tried to do that to debunk them, but they're rubbish when you look at the man-made ones. The ones that come from our friends above and the connection between Gaia, because some of this comes right up from Gaia. There may be an interstellar conveyance, and then you'll see these orbs come up out of the earth, and they'll do that beautiful dance, and then they'll either go up or they'll go back into the earth. And so, but those are ancient geometric mathematic symbols which pertain to our higher cognition. They are teaching us the symbology to help us awaken areas in our mind where these ancient mathematic enzymes and amino acids are stored electrochemically. So when we see these things and these images travel down our optic nerve, the parietal lobe in our brain cognates them and sends them down what's called the diencephalon, which is a central mass below our two cerebrum. Now, the diencephalon converts that light image or the image of a reflection from something you've observed, like a symbol, and converts that into an electrochemical signature, which your brain then puts to where it belongs and stores it for later activation or later use. Now, it could be accumulation of all of these symbols that help cause a genetic trigger. So at some point, academics have agreed that perhaps 12,000, 14,000 years ago, humankind all over the world went from hunter-gatherer to let's all of a sudden march off to Mesopotamia and start building ziggurats and writing in cuneiform and clay tablets. And now the same thing happened in South America when you had the ancient Mayans and the Olmecs. They were building fabulous complex temples. Same thing in pre-dynastic Egypt. They were starting to build temples and dig underground. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. So all of these interesting giant Mesolithic fundamental temples that are in existence because they're so massive were all put together at a specific time over a period of specific time, right when mankind was leaving the hunter-gatherer mentality. Now, there's a lot of evidence that points to genetic modification and modification of our DNA. There's a lot of interesting things that our ancestors left for us in rock for us to interpret. And I think it's very important for academia to interpret these symbols prima facie, take them for what they are. If something looks like a spaceship crashed into a rock with a little stream of light coming down and a bunch of little stick figures below.
Right, and the circles that are portals. I mean,
and if it's 15,000 years old.
With meaning.
Right.
So we would wake up at some point along the way and go, oh, this is not
Right.
roadmap. I mean, we
It's
have
so
science
difficult.
today, but we are getting it on so many different ways because they've been communicating with us forever, and it keeps changing
Oh,
and
sure.
improving, right?
Sure. And they're communicating with us now. And that's why I have a smile on my face, because I know they're listening to you and I.
I know they are. They're
And
laughing and going, "Come on, keep going, keep."
oh, and they have a lovely sense of humor. But so I think that academics really should stop living in the fear of sort of the old ways and just sort of throw out all the hyperbole and the rubbish they've been trying to fob off on us and accept what's going on. Because if they don't, you and I and the rest of the community within Ascension are going to leave them behind too. I mean, there's some fabulously intellectually gifted people that also are in communication with species that are beyond our world. And there's no way you can say no to that. I mean, there really are. So,
Well, and our kids, the kids are waking up, are being
oh,
born.
sure.
Such advancement. They're teaching us now. But our bones are changing, our genes change, our bones are becoming lighter, our temperature is going down.
Right.
We're cooling down because we're not outside anymore. I mean, there are all
Right.
changes happening every day, and history will be taught in a whole different way. And
Yeah, it's lovely. It's
that we'll
lovely.
be
So
doing, that we're doing right now.
I think that we've had guidance.
Yes, we've had.
And I believe that they've been guiding us ever since we crawled out of the pond, because I really do have a lot of faith in evolution. I believe in the evolutionary process. Of course, it doesn't have to be Darwin's exact idea, but I believe that at one point when we started walking erect as a Homo habilis, that they came down and went, oh, look, we can modify them and make them, lovely. And let's make them a little bit like us and see what's going on. And remember, here's something to consider that isn't often spoke about within this community, is that beyond Earth sentience and these beautiful species from other galaxies or other worlds in our galaxy, they evolve as well. So there may be behavioral changes that we know about from them from 6,000, 12,000, or 24,000 years ago that were perhaps manipulated cataclysms that occurred on Earth, things that they did in order to redirect the gene pool. Perhaps they've evolved beyond that point too. And I believe very strongly that as they evolve, there's some shame and there's some forgiveness and some kindness that they are now expressing towards us, because there have been mistakes made in the past.
Well, and I think, and I've been told that when I went on craft at age 5 in 1956, I said it was so brutal, back then, and it's changed how they took eggs from me. It was, big needles. It was really scary. And
right.
we're so sorry, Mary. We didn't know how much it hurt. We didn't know how traumatic it was for
Correct.
you. And
Correct.
we changed it. We don't do it that way anymore. So
Mhm.
even looking at some of the hybrid children that I've had, because we are part of the experiment, part of that, and we're also here to help humanity elongate our humanity here on Earth or off planet, which we're doing, and many are living off planet, as we already know.
Correct. Well, I think that you're absolutely bang on, and that makes me remember something that I had sort of learned through a download. Because when I had first met Kim Jim and he took me into the tent at the beach, or they took me into the tent at the beach, and I sat with him for about an hour and a half talking before they took me away. He had apologized to me because they had been manipulating my family for some 2,000 years, and particularly me for the last 2 lives, because I've only had 3 lives on this planet. This is my 3rd. And they felt sorry because they knew something was up and that it was going to cause a negative reaction in this life. And so the reason I was allowed to have the extreme experience of being taken away and remembering every detail was because I was awake and I went on a ship and I disappeared. And they said that they're allowing me to have this higher cognition because they don't want me to have a nervous breakdown, because I was figuring it out on my own.
Well, I've been figuring it out on my own, as we all.
And
And
you and I,
when they were putting the stats in my head, it was like, and then I started seeing, ghosts, and then I saw more. I saw an angel.
right.
So they have been aiding us,
Oh yeah,
grooming us. They've been looking 94 generations since 0 AD at me and my family and our heart
right.
and our space and all of our DNA. Your DNA is special, my DNA is special, and we've talked many times about how similar our paths have been and how we connected so immediately as sort of soul family as we are,
Right.
that they have been grooming us and helping us every day. And of course, the telepathy is the common
It's
communication.
off the charts right now.
And
It's off the charts.
it is, and everything is happening so quickly because they're helping us wake
Right.
up faster. And the people who
Right.
aren't,
It's been an
No,
issue. It's
I
been an
think
issue with the
consequences.
galactic. Yeah, it's been an issue with the Galactic Council of Scientists about the rapidity and how much information we could take, because we are a soft, gentle species, and we are only able to admit and to receive so much information before we implode. So they're doing it at, they think they found the right level, the frequency in which we can absorb and process information, act upon it, store it, or act upon it later, and then receive more, because they really need us to pick up the pace a little bit, and we're doing a fabulous job. One of the things that I wanted to finish saying was that when I asked Kim Jim, I said, well, why don't you just do another flood and wipe out the bad people? And he said, we can't separate the wheat from the chaff, and we don't behave that way anymore. We've changed. And we find that murder is abhorrent on any level, no matter who we eliminate. And we cannot find that we're able to do that. It is just wrong, because only the creator can do these things. And so they've changed, they've evolved. So even the species that were manipulating us 12,000 years ago have also evolutionarily changed. It's easier. It's almost like cyclical growth or exponential growth. Once you become to a certain stage of enlightenment, then you accelerate much faster in a higher form of enlightenment. And it's fascinating. And that's what's happening to human beings right now. The process of waking up has occurred. Now we see ourselves in a different way, and now we are sending out energy waves and communicating telepathically, and all of a sudden we're having more aha moments. And when you meet people, you feel this almost electrical energy coming off of them, and it's in sync with your own vibration. So they're giving us all of these wonderful gifts.
When they're doing it also in the nice drip drip. I mean, we are the distinguisher. We're helping us. I mean, I was told 5 or 6 times from age 19 that I would wake up at 70. I'm 71 now. I woke up last year. I've been waking up all the way along. And they said, Mary, you're so impatient. You want it all to happen now, but you couldn't. And because of some of the programs and some of the things that I've been through, I understand now. And I did wake up. I mean, how could somebody in India, somebody in New York, somebody in San Francisco, somebody in Boulder, somebody in Hong Kong, all tell me you're going to wake up at 70? I said, I'll be, I've mentioned this to you before, but it's all about timing, and why we are all here now, particularly this important year of 2023 and 2024, is we are all here to play our part to expand and lift the consciousness together of those of us who want to and can and will do the hard work, and also take the steps to even improve more. I mean, I want to improve every day. We can improve every day. I'm letting go of judgment that I'm carried around exhaustingly and negatively for a long time to a few people and ex-husbands and whoever it is. We got to let go and allow ourselves to be as pure and to find the love in our hearts and the self-love, and be the love and be the knowing and be the being, if we are going to be here to really help ourselves and the people that we touch, like are listening right now. We're all doing their job. Most of us are, and I think
it's okay.
Beautiful, and it's a renaissance. We are in the revolution, reset, refresh.
Yes, we are in a
right now.
renaissance.
It got set, and it is happening, and it is. And fasten your seatbelt, because we got to keep learning quicker, faster, and react and be even purer in our spirit, in our integrity, in our manners, in our kindness, in our love, in our expression. Smile more, wag our tails more, and bark less. It's exhausting.
It's a beautiful thing. You're so funny, but you're absolutely correct. And we're all saying the same thing. I mean, you mentioned people in Hong Kong and people in Dubai and people in Africa. The advent, one of the few blessings about the World Wide Web is that it gets the information out there, and we're all saying the same thing. So we know we're not wrong, and this is no different. And we'll go right back to the monkey that picked up the stick, you see, right? So it's the same thing. So this is one evolutionary trigger that we can prove that's happening right now. There are others, but interestingly enough, academia is not, and this is academia everywhere, sadly, especially the US government. academia is not promoting cognitive changes to humanity. They're not promoting what evolution is. They've assumed that evolution takes many thousands, if not millions of years, whereas they're not correct at all. Evolution is occurring every moment and it happens exponentially. What they're not promoting are exercises that you can do yourself at home to help increase your cortical production, your cerebral hemisphere, your cerebrum, make it larger, to have a higher value of transmission synapses so that you can easily comprehend subjects you normally wouldn't be interested in. It's the sort of chemistry that allows you to walk into a library and perhaps thumb the mathematics section before you go to the novels. It's like, why am I over here looking at quantum mathematics? Well, it's because your brain craves it.
We're like a sonar.
Right.
So
You're
please,
like
we're like a, what do you call it? A homing pigeon, a sonic, what do you call that? Whatever it is.
Yes, you've touched on that as well. And that's interesting that you should mention homing pigeons. There's another study about our brain that needs to be done. You see, a homing pigeon has what's called a specific iron ion in the center of its brain. It's a little iron molecule that aligns itself electromagnetically with the planet's magnetic lines. Oddly enough, black widow spiders, which are a completely different animal diaspora, also have a magnetic ion in the center of their brain. Only they have a couple of glandular sacs rather than brains, and they're based on amino acid responses because, spiders are evolving as well. Someday they'll have a brain. But anyways, this ion, which exists in these two animals, like if you find a black widow spider in your house and you're in imminent danger of being bitten, or an animal or children, yeah, kill it. I'm sorry. I'm gonna resist the karmic cavalcade and remove an animal from the planet. But if you're a humanitarian like I am, and you think about all species as being sacred,
right, we are.
Get a ball mason jar, put the spider in a ball mason jar, but you must go 5 miles away from your home.
I didn't know it was that far because I had them here, and I saw them in Peru that were like
right. So if you don't take that dangerous spider
5 miles,
right, more than 5 miles away.
I wonder what that is. Why would that relate to some energetic or ley line?
It'll come exactly to the same place. It'll come back and it'll wait till you open your front door and it'll walk back in and it'll go back to the same nest.
You mean at 4.99 miles, sort of like a dog will, even if they're in Ohio, come back to California? Yep. So what sonar is that? That's the energetic.
Well, it's got to be magnetic. It's got to be electromagnetic ley lines. So, but because animals can sense the very minuscule electromagnetic signatures that are everywhere. And humans, of course, cannot, because we eat fast food and we're too busy playing with computers. Whatever the distraction is.
Right.
So it's fascinating. But I believe that human beings have this very advanced version of that. And it's one of the attributes of our pineal gland. And not a lot of people are talking about this, but after studying cerebral functions and nervous system functions, I'm more and more inclined to go back to school again and go get a PhD in neurology, because the human mind has a lot of fascinating attributes that we're not really looking at. So if academia and the governments are not promoting ways for us to evolve, there's a reason behind that. And if they found that we're generating just enough income for their nefarious needs, well, why not keep people down? So what I have done is I've started looking at different ways that we can do things at home to increase our own higher cognition. And one of them is a very simple physical exercise that you can do with your hands. And I'm going to show it to you.
Let's do it.
All right. So take your right hand and go forward in a little circle.
Counterclockwise or clockwise?
No, just go forward.
I'm going to go clockwise.
Right? Okay, just go forward. And then with your left hand, go backwards. Nope, your hands are going the same way. Nope, hands are going the same way.
Oh yeah, it's like a rub your tummy thing.
Bingo. Okay, so, right, rub your tummy, pat your head, but this is the difficult version. So if you take your right hand and you go forward and your left hand and you go backwards, and you see I'm quite good at it because I've been working on it for a couple of years. What this does is it interrupts the known signal synapse between the left and right hemisphere. it sends a new amino acid, which your brain automatically creates because it wants you to do this exercise. And you increase the synapse between the left and the right hemisphere.
First of all, how long do you do this for? How often? How many times a day?
Well, I'm really quite good
why
at
does
it.
And I wonder why it stops. So you're disrupting an old pattern. Is that
Correct? You're disrupting the pattern of the right hemisphere controlling the left side and the left hemisphere controlling the right side. Because we know there's this great huge nerve, like the vagus nerve, that goes in between the right side of the hemisphere, which controls the left side of your body.
Well,
So,
that's partly too why we're moving into the male and feminine. It's like Men Are from Mars, we're
right.
moving
So it's
into
like
more unisex anyway. We look
well,
at sexuality
you're
change
correct.
in the
You're
world.
correct.
So all of that, right? We're
It will help you access so many things. All right. Doing this exercise will improve your balance.
Right.
It will improve the way you approach situations in life. It will make you happier. And it will make people feel differently about you in a nice way. And this is something that I didn't try and achieve. This is something that they told me to do. And it bloody well works. And you take your right hand and go forward and your left hand and go backwards. And as you do this exercise, it causes a greater growth of neural synapse between your two hemispheres because it's not a natural exercise that you're doing. You're forcing your brain to think differently about the way it communicates with either side of your body. So it's a really good exercise. So this is one of my personal yoga meditation exercises that I do that they gave me that helps me center myself and bring my brain closer to almost being one brain instead of two lobes.
Oh my God. And can I jump up? That is so beautiful. And because, I'm an artist and a designer, and I know you're creative too. And
there's a reason we were brought together today.
Oh my God. I hadn't thought of that. So.
Oh, I love these synchronicities. There's a reason for everything. There are no accidents. You just have to accept it and move on.
Well, my mom, just to go back, I've told you about my mom a lot. She was unbelievable and smart. She could write forwards. She was ambidextrous. Remember in the olden days, you weren't allowed to be left-handed. She was born left-handed. They trained her at age 12. So she could write forwards and backwards and upside down and mirror image. And I was always fascinated by that. So because I started painting rocks after my first craft visit to make sense out of it and validate, I think, because nobody else was validating it in my family because they were allowed to talk about it. But I started when I taught 6 to 12-year-olds art and college at the Academy of Art College, your color and design. I said, one good thing you can do, and then I got carpal tunnel syndrome from drafting at firms for a long time. So it was like I had a cast in the olden days. 30 years ago, I had a cast on my hand. So I thought, okay, this is going to come in handy now. But anyway, so I started training myself and I started trying to have my kids and my students, I said, learn both because that will balance you out. I can't believe I forgot about all this. So I started drawing and I said, try to draw the same image, mirror image. This is just this was my brand for Earth like 25 years ago that I do for myself. It was about energy. It was about nature and trees and water and sunshine and rainbows and craft and stuff that I had. And then I started drawing like this so I could train myself to draw both sides equally because I always felt so chopped in half.
God, your stuff's amazing.
Female. I mean, so it's also, you can do it with art too. So try to draw anything mirror image because that has helped me my whole life to balance myself out physically in a space because all I've ever done is I was supposed to color within the box, but we were black sheep, right? We rebelled, wiggle in and out. I've always been in this. And that allowed me to help center myself just intuitively that I started doing as a young girl when I saw my mom doing these weird things.
Fantastic. Well, the first one looks like both a heraldic crest, but it also looks like a fractal Mandelbrot.
Oh,
It
I don't
looks like
know what that is, but I was trying to get rid of my family
well,
ancestry of money and so the bad part, I have good part. But
for
this
all
was my
for all of
herald.
you physicists out there, it looks like a fractal Mandelbrot, doesn't it?
Well, also, I want to get to that. When I was speaking with Ralph Lauren about 35 years ago, I showed this to him and I said, you are Ralph Lauren Lipschitz. We were both speaking at some big New York thing. And I said, you're the speaker. I'm only, but I said, I want to show you a drawing. I created my own logo.
Fabulous.
For me, and everybody should design their own brand and their own logo, because I would
Totally.
have been a black sheep, but I'm also a light worker. So
Right.
so anyway, go back to this. So tell me about what you see in this. I
Well,
love.
I see it. I totally see a spiritual heraldic crest, but because of the avenues in the direction of the pointy bits on the outside of the shield, I also see a fractal Mandelbrot. Mandelbrot, of course, is a higher form of mathematics, which enables us to go to the next higher form of mathematics. And fractal being the fact that it's sort of swirled infinitely and has that sort of infinite swirling shape. So you've touched on something very deep within your DNA to access that image. I can tell you it has mathematic properties, which are terrific. And the thing about self-validation that you brought up was so valid right now, because so many people are looking outside for someone to come and save us. Oh, that's lovely. Pardon me. But so many people are looking outside of us to save us. You know, that we have the savior that we pray to, or we pray to this God or that God or this entity. But you know what? It's all right here.
Right here in
Just
our
be
heart.
loving and forgiving and be kind and accepting and be patient. And something that you and I touched on before we opened up today, and I know this is about higher cognitive studies. So let's hope that you guys try that exercise, keep doing it until you get it, and then we'll move on a little bit, because you touched on something really interesting before we turned on the camera and the microphone, and it was self-validating. And you know, it's so very important for us to be loved. I mean, we are social creatures. It's so important to be loved. But in order to understand what sort of value others share towards us in their own recognition of love, we first must pause and slow down enough to really find out what true love is. And after we've been through the cycle of pain and the cycle of broken relationships and the cycle of what we thought was love, until we've really settled ourselves down and concentrated and thought about it, love is something that we were born with, and it's something that we'll pass away with, and it's something that we like to have in our lives. Love is this powerful, wonderful energy, and I know from experience that they operate on those principles as well.
Right. Well, and two, we can't learn about love without the fear and the balance. And I've been,
Right.
you
So,
talked
right.
about this a lot. The imbalances, it's accepting both. I never did, because I thought mean people, I was bullied. I always took.
Oh yeah, there's loads of
I
that.
was hypersensitive to even like going out at some points, because I thought I can't handle this. World is too harsh for me, because I've been I'm an earthling too now, and haven't been as much like you haven't.
Right.
But anyway, when we find that love and that self peace, we can only find that. And I've been, during COVID, as I've said to you many times, COVID was a good time for us. As difficult as it was, we saw people die. We saw all these movements happen, from Black Lives Matter to the Me Too movement, all these things. We came inside, forced to come inside. And when we come inside our home, and I create home sweet home, I've done interiors
Right.
50 years. It's all I've ever cared about.
Yeah, of course, people get creative.
To get into our creativity and imagination and go to the dark corners, the fears, the anger, the disappointment, the resentments we have with exes and people and relationships, all that yucky stuff, and go, okay, what do I choose today and every day to shift this? I can let it go. And that's why we were sent, we talk all about, everyone's talking about love today. It is what we.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. It's about time. We've waited for a long time. We got some of it in the 60s, right?
Right. Well, they were on the right track, because they were talking about the dawning of the age of Aquarius. And they knew
now we're in it.
Moving out of into the Aquarian cosmos and all the different energy values that come from outer space because of this movement. The planet's making lots of changes. Remember that whatever you hear and see, use your heart to find the truth, and use your common sense, and contact the people that you love and trust to communicate to. Whatever you hear and see isn't necessarily the paradigm of reality. It's what they are promoting. And if the earth makes changes, the earth's going to make changes. Just go with it and have fun and be loving and forgiving. Just be who you are. It doesn't matter if there's a cataclysm coming. It doesn't matter if the sun has a micronova or we move into an ice age. The planet will be its planet. We're just a critter crawling around on the surface. So just go with it.
Right, and we're here to enjoy. The reason we are here is to learn whatever we need to learn about ourselves, help heal. It's all about love and it's all about healing. And we can't love and we love as we heal, when we heal together. And that's why we're sitting here talking right now. So,
and I need to talk to you. And oh, by the way, I caught you on Becca B. I thought that was a wonderful interview that you did with her. So touching, and you touched on so many interesting subjects. She let you have the floor, which I thought was great, and you deserve your podium. Believe me, you have a lot of wonderful things to share. I was trying to figure out what my role was more and more after my last visit, and I have to tell you, I do have empathy and I do have empathic abilities. I know that there are people that I've touched in my life by just laying my hands on them to help them heal physically, and it's helped a little. But I never really wanted to pick up the role of the healer, but that's why I need to be with you and to be with Becca and other healers, because I'm more of a translator. I'm a whole person now. I'm a healed person.
me too. Yeah.
And so I don't have any guilt or regrets or anger about anything. And I live a life of bliss, and my life is loving, and I have love for everything. And so I don't need to find those fundamental tools anymore because of the gifts that I received from above. And I accepted them because I can't deny what real reality is. So I'm a translator, but I need to be with healers because it helps me translate my own experience. And you are a healer, and Becca is amazing, and so is Vivian Chauvet. She's so
amazing.
powerful psychically. What a wonderful woman.
Well,
So
we're light beings. You and I transmit and connect.
Right, and
light,
we are light
do it
beings
in different ways, and then we a conduit. Some of us are more conduits to connect.
right.
We all have different roles, but that's why, I mean, I've been so focused on the children because I don't want other kids to go through what I went through. And that's why
You're so psychic. You're so psychic.
Space. And then my friend who passed of cancer, she said, do a book on boobies that go to heaven that are happy when they go to heaven.
Right.
So I worked it out last year and 3 months before she passed. And then that's me.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got it, whatever we do. And that's why I think you and I should do another book for kids, because the kids' minds are already framed by age 1. They pick it up culturally from their parents. We learn judgment is religion. I mean, I love the Prince Harry. Never explain, never complain was what was in my household too. Because for those of us who grew up in either strict households or in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, I got it in like a triple whammy. Because
I had an Edwardian upbringing.
And the military and the government and NASA. So
that too.
Talk about things. So I want the truth, and I want to help other people in the little bit that I can to let them know that our ET friends are here to help us, that love us, take the fear away. That's why I put me on the cover at age 5. And then my friends, the Greys and Arcturians, who were on the craft with me at that time.
Wonderful.
So I think helping children, a lot of them are coming out. A lot of the children today, we know the indigos and the Asperger's, like Musk and Einstein. A lot of these brilliant men, and mostly men, and were dyslexic and had learning issues and ADHD. Like I have everything. But I think if we could do even the simple book about the brain, show it, tell a story about how you have a choice every day to make a decision of how you want to learn to. And of course, we're not talking down anybody. We're talking together.
No, we want
how the brain and learn
make the right choice.
Today is what are 11 new things that is happening right now on Earth. Our brains are expanding. Our temperature is changing. I mean, they're facts kept coming out every single day. We are writing history as we speak. It's already changed in the time since we talked. We don't know anything anymore.
Right, it's fabulous. We're just one string in a line of trillions and trillions of strings of information. But because of the energy that comes from that harmonic string, like a harp string vibrating, then we attract the other right strings and we can communicate together and form a cable, a very powerful cable. So when we release that conduit and it sways around of energy into the sky like a lightning bolt coming from the earth, it really attracts some attention. My thinking earlier too, by the way, I wanted to say that when you had bad experiences with species from beyond the world, and other older couples like Betty and Barney Hill that went through that whole experimentation process, and when I was saying that they've changed, when I said, why don't you just wipe them out? And they said, well, we can't separate the wheat from the chaff. They've become more gentle, and they don't do the needle in the abdomen thing anymore. None of them do. Those have all
Went
been,
away in the 90s.
all of that stuff. Yes,
left.
all of those treatments were made illegal by the Galactic Council of Scientists because of the nature of our species and other species. They weren't considering the emotional impact upon us and the physical pain. What they do now, and I think back to the Immaculate Conception.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good point.
Right. So when we have star children that are born, even though the father and the mother are in a union of love to create a baby, there's also Immaculate Conception that comes through the father or comes through the mother and enters into the union of the seed and the ovum. So that there's a special spark that creates that spirit child. So they do it gently during the process of lovemaking.
Yes.
And whether you see, like, however you express yourself physically to the partner that you love when you make love, especially to conceive, it's a very great, powerful form of love. And you can't be aware of anything around you except the person that you're expressing love to. And more likely than not, there's probably some little blue-white orb floating around your bedroom or above your house while you're doing it.
Right. It's true. And because I have so many hundreds of hybrid children, I had unsatisfied relations from my late teens up to when I late had kids. Miraculously, I had Lizzie and Alex 32 and 34 years ago.
They're fabulous too. My God.
Oh, thank you. Well, so is your William. I mean,
thanks. Oh, he's so great.
And we wanted to teach our children about love and compassion and giving community and that. But
Correct.
When we do have that next generation, we obviously, William is balanced, my kids are balanced and they're doing good.
Oh yeah, gosh, far more than I was when I was their age.
Right, well, because the world has changed. So that's what we pass the torch to our children. And until they start getting our kind of books in schools, when I went to NASA 5 years ago with this book and a see-through backpack of water bottle and patches, we are heroes, I said, and he happened to grow up in my parents' hometown and knew our family, which was insane. Of course, no coincidences, had a STEM. And he said, we don't have any funding now, but we will down the road. Please come back. I said, our kind of books, simplistic books, basic books need to be in the public schools and the private schools. And one of my friends here does that up and down California. He's been doing it for about 30 years. So I think if we can do even a simple 18-page book, I'm working on another one right now, just on healing kids, healing children we're talking about meditation, yoga, going through some of the basics.
Sure.
Do one on show them where the chakra system is, show them how the brain is changing, how the body's changing, all these different things, because they may never change it in our American school system. I mean, if you can't
those are all
Tom Sawyer, we should
wonderful ideas. Absolutely. And there's a real need for it too. There's a lot of good if you know your local grade school and the administrators and educators, they're desperate for fun stuff and interesting stuff for kids, because they're always waiting for some budget increase to buy some pap from the government to hand out as a school book for children. School libraries are suffering. Anything that you have in the form of children's books, I'm sure they'd love them.
Well, I have taken this into preschools and a few different schools, but I'm just saying one about the body and the brain, and these evolutionary ones would be very simple and beautiful to pass that on without getting involved in some of this. I'm just saying what you're talking about, the brain, the body, what we can do. Here's some steps. This is what we
Right.
do now. Just this simplicity.
There could be a way to get that in there without causing too many ripples or waves in the status quo.
Yes.
Because when you start talking about developmental functions and evolutionary development, academia starts getting pins and needles. So we have to be really careful about how the information is presented in a way that allows children to develop and draw their own conclusions. I was actually thinking of doing a children's book to teach children how to write their own children's book.
Well, that'd be great too. We can do.
Right?
I've been doing these now.
So it's like a book pack, and the kid opens it up and says, "I want to write a story. I want to write my story." And so, like, one of the pages might have a little mirror on it.
Right.
And they can write their name there.
An art engagement book for the adventurous. And
bingo. Art engagement books are terrific.
But I mean, and then you got a congratulations for even participating in when you did it.
That's perfect. That's so funny. I haven't read that book. Like,
I haven't showed you this one, but I mean, anyway, this is interactive, and I say draw yourself and draw your pets.
Great. Oh, wonderful. Oh, wonderful.
So this is, these are in an art and our mission: inspire children to go beyond their home in the universe. But it could be whatever it is.
Gets one.
Everybody gets one. I gave about 50 of the more generic one. I'm the space explorer. I gave 50 of them for free.
You call it generic, but it's absolutely fab.
But in black and white to this incredible company and this school that's doing art things in Oakland. And they said, we don't have any money to give you, Mary. But I said, I'll just print out 50 in black and white.
I know, it's so expensive.
And they distributed it a few years ago, and they all loved it. So we can get it. We can do that. And that's why, what we're doing is we're taking action right now. We're talking about what we can do for the future and the now. That's one thing we can do for our kids.
Absolutely.
And we both have kids, and most of us watching, a lot of us have kids.
We can all manifest success based on the amount of love that's genuine. And when we put out genuine vibrations of love and forgiveness, compassion and harmony, and protecting the planet and all the animals and trees, when we put that energy out there, we will get rewards. And I told the universe just the other day, I wouldn't mind winning that Mega Millions. Looks like somebody else won it. But, if I win the Mega Millions, everyone's going to get a gift in the mail. I'm telling you, there's nothing I could do with $1 billion except share it with everybody I know. Right. And so it's like, okay, this will pay for a donation of 50,000 books. Let's go.
I thought the same thing too. I thought we could have books all over California and all over the country and all over the world. And on this next ISS.
Well, someday, in the not so near future, mankind will move back to more agrarian policies and more earth policies, and we'll be using trade more than money.
Oh, we are. We're going back there right now.
Yeah, because money doesn't.
Creating a more sustainable environment. Right. I've been doing sustainability my whole life in projects. That's what it is. I live in 1,000 square foot condo. I have all natural materials that are not toxic here. I don't want lead-based paint. When I had a flood here, it destroyed everything. It was great that I got the early 60s lead-based paint out of here, which I wanted to do. But it's all about sustainability. It's really always has been about sustainability, and people don't understand that term. It's not just getting solar panels, which are always nice, but it's about our body, our hygiene, our eating and thinking the right good thoughts and being active, and being the activist. And that's
we are a physical manifestation of the thoughts that we keep
by our intention. I mean, I don't need to do another vision board. I am living my vision board for what my capacity is to play my little ripple.
So I guess the message for me today before I go is hey guys, listen, my life is full of bliss and love. And I have wonderful friends like Mary and all these other wonderful people. And I have a beautiful son who loves me because I took the time to meditate on what love is, to understand what my role is, and how to be a loving, gentle man. I mean, I'm 249 pounds and I'm 6'4.5". And believe me, I could be a bull in a china shop. And it takes some skill for me to walk through a Tiffany art gallery and not knock anything over with my 14-inch long feet. So let me tell you, our lives are blissful. Our lives are happy and beautiful because we only want you to be happy and beautiful. We put it out there. Our lives are great. We want your life to be great too. And that means forgiveness, letting go of things, loving yourself and loving life, because life is a sweet, precious gift and it should be adored every day, because there's so many ways to wake up in the morning. Let's wake up the right way by choosing to be a loving, forgiving person, right?
Oh, I love that. Well, what a beautiful note to end on. And here, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Every day we make 1,000 choices a day. I mean, what is it?
Right.
80,000 thoughts a day. Well, make them
Yeah.
more positive and love more and be nicer and kinder. And we check in with each other all the time. But anyway, on that, we're going to say, love each other today. We'll look forward to
I love you so much.
I love you, and I look forward to seeing you next time. And
Thank you.
everyone have a wonderful day today. Lots of love, Dave.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.